Adetola's lungs burned as she shoved through the crowd at Noryanjan Fish Market, the sharp smell of salt and ice doing nothing to mask the panic clawing up her throat. She'd spotted them 3 blocks back, 2 men in dark jackets moving with the kind of purpose that said they weren't tourists. They'd been on her since she left the PC cafe in Gangnam at dawn. And now, with the morning ferry to Uido her only escape route, she had maybe 2 minutes before they closed the distance. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Chidi, again, she didn't need to look. She ducked left into a narrow alley between fish stalls, her sneakers slipping on the wet pavement, and came out near the ferry terminal just as the horn blasted. Last call. She ran. The 2 men broke into a sprint behind her. Adetola hit the boarding ramp at full speed, shoving her transit card against the reader so hard it beeped in protest. The ferry worker barely glanced at her as she stumbled onto the deck, chest heaving, searching for somewhere, anywhere to hide. The men were 20 feet behind, slowed by the bottleneck of passengers but coming. She pressed herself against the railing on the far side of the deck, trying to blend into a group of ajamas with shopping bags, and that's when she felt it. Someone watching her with the intensity of a predator that had already chosen its prey. Adetola burst. The voice came from directly behind her, smooth as silk over a blade. She spun so fast she nearly lost her footing on the wet deck. The man standing 3 feet away hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. She would have noticed him. He occupied space the way dangerous things did, making everything around him feel smaller by proximity. Korean, tall for it, maybe 6'1", somewhere in his late 40s, with silver threading through black hair cut military short, and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile sometime in its 30s and never bothered to relearn. He wore a black wool coat that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, and his eyes, dark, unreadable, colder than the Han River below them, fixed on her with the kind of focus that made her understand what mice felt like when hawks circled overhead. "Who are you?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Someone who can help you." He spoke English with barely an accent, each word precisely chosen. His gaze flicked past her shoulder. "Or someone you walk away from right now. You have approximately 10 seconds before the 2 men following you reach this deck." Her heart stopped. "What men?" "The ones your fiancé hired. Private investigators, Korean nationals, very good at finding people who don't want to be found." He checked his watch, expensive, understated. 7 seconds. Adetola risked a glance back. The 2 men had made it onto the ferry, scanning the crowd. One of them locked eyes with her. "Why would you help me?" "I didn't say I would help you, I said I could." His expression didn't change. 5 seconds. The first investigator started moving toward her, speaking into his phone. "What do you want?" "To discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement, somewhere private." He tilted his head slightly. 3 seconds, choose. The investigator was 10 feet away, hand reaching out. She chose. The man moved like water, smooth, inevitable, his hand closing around her elbow. Not roughly, but with enough firmness that she understood refusal wasn't part of the equation anymore. He turned her body with his, positioning himself between her and the approaching investigator, and guided her toward the stairs leading to the lower deck. "Wait," the investigator called out in Korean. The man didn't stop. He pulled a phone from his pocket with his free hand, pressed it to his ear, and said something sharp and fast in Korean that made the investigator freeze mid-step. Whatever he'd said, it worked. The investigator's face went pale. He backed up, speaking urgently into his own phone. "What did you tell him?" Adetola asked as they descended the metal stairs. "That if he followed us, I'd ensure Dacian investigations lost their business license by noon." He released her elbow, moving ahead to push open a maintenance door that should have been locked. It opened under his hand like he owned the damn boat. "After you." The hallway beyond smelled of diesel and salt, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Adetola hesitated. "They're regrouping," the man said without looking back. calling their supervisor for instructions. You have maybe 3 minutes before they decide I'm bluffing. I'm not bluffing, but they don't know that yet. She followed. He moved through the ferry's maintenance level like he'd memorized the layout, taking 2 turns and descending another short staircase before stopping at a crew cabin. The door opened. Again, no key needed, and he gestured her inside. The cabin was small, cramped. A table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs that had seen better decades, a porthole window showing nothing but gray fog. She stepped inside and he followed, closing the door behind them. The lock clicked, she heard it. "Sit." Adetola stayed standing, her back against the far wall. "Tell me who you are first." For the first time, something almost like approval crossed his face. Almost. He removed his coat with economical movements, draping it over one chair, and she caught a glimpse of the shoulder holster under his suit jacket. Gun. Black. Professional. He sat, apparently unbothered by her refusal to do the same. "My name is Kang Jiwon. I work in private intelligence, corporate security, asset protection, information acquisition. Clients pay me to solve problems that can't be solved through legal channels." He steepled his fingers on the table. "Your family hired a firm called Daishin Investigations 4 days ago. That firm subcontracted to me because they know I have contacts in immigration and law enforcement. I declined the job." "Why?" "Because I looked into your situation, and I don't retrieve women who are running from forced marriages." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "I have standards." "Then why are you here?" "Because your case presented an opportunity." Jiwon pulled a slim leather folder from his jacket pocket, sliding it across the table. "You need legal status in South Korea. I need a wife." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Excuse me. I'm 47 years old. Under Korean law, my mother's estate, which I'm set to inherit in 6 months, contains a provision that if I'm unmarried at the time of her death, the entire inheritance passes to my younger brother." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "My mother added that clause specifically to force me into marriage. She believed a family man would be less dangerous than a lone wolf. She was wrong about many things." Above them, footsteps pounded on the deck, raised voices. Someone was arguing in Korean. "They're searching for you," Jiwon said calmly. "Probably threatening the ferry crew. They'll have this level searched within 10 minutes. Adetola's hands trembled. "What are you proposing?" "A legal marriage that will secure your residency status and my financial future. In exchange, you'll have protection from your family, legal documentation and financial support until such time as the marriage is no longer necessary." He tapped the folder. "The contract outlines everything. You'll live in my apartment, maintain the appearance of marriage to outside observers, and in 2 years, after my mother's assets are secured and your permanent residency is approved, we divorce quietly. You'll receive a settlement of 500 million won." "This is insane." "This is business." The footsteps overhead grew louder, closer. "You're running out of time, Miss Burr. Your visa expires in 46 hours. Chidi called the Ethiopian embassy this morning to report you as a potential trafficking victim. He's filed a missing persons report with Seoul Metro Police. In approximately 36 hours, you'll be taken into protective custody, questioned, and likely deported back to Ethiopia." His eyes never left hers. "Or you can sign the contract, walk off this ferry as my fiancé, and disappear into a life those men will never be able to touch." A fist pounded on the cabin door. Someone shouted in Korean. Jiwon didn't even glance at the door. "Your choice, but make it now." Adetola's mind raced. Chidi's hands on her shoulders at the airport in Addis. Her mother's voice. Good daughters don't run from their duties. The teaching position she'd turned down because Chidi wanted a wife who stayed home. The life that had been planned for her by everyone except herself. She reached for the folder. The pounding on the door intensified. "Where do I sign?" Jiwon produced a pen from his pocket, expensive black lacquer, and opened the contract to the final page. "Here." And here. Her hand shook as she wrote her name. Adetola Buha. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The door handle rattled. Someone was trying to force it. Jiwon took the contract, folded it precisely, and tucked it into his jacket. Then he reached into his other pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, white gold, single diamond, elegant and expensive and utterly impersonal. "Give me your hand." She did. His fingers were cold when they closed around hers, surprisingly gentle as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. The door rattled again. A voice shouted, "Open up, we know she's in there." Jiwon stood, buttoning his suit jacket over the gun holster. "Stay behind me." He unlocked the door and opened it in one smooth motion. Two men stood in the hallway, the investigators from earlier, both breathing hard, one with his phone out like he'd been about to call someone. They looked past Jiwon to Adetola, then back to Jiwon, confusion and frustration warring on their faces. Jiwon said something in Korean, low and dangerous. The first investigator responded, gesturing at Adetola. Jiwon's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, became more predatory. He took one step forward into the hallway, forcing the investigators back. He spoke again, quieter this time, and Adetola caught one word she recognized. "Jilhun, marriage." He held up Adetola's left hand, showing the ring. The investigators stared. One of them started to protest. Jiwon pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and said something sharp. Then he turned the phone around, showing the investigators the screen. Whatever they saw made the color drain from both their faces. "What did you show them?" Adetola whispered. "A photo of their supervisor having dinner with a woman who is not his wife." Jiwon pocketed his phone. "He'll be very motivated to close this case quickly and forget you exist." The investigators backed up another step, still staring at the ring, at Jiwon, at the woman they'd been hired to find standing behind a man who clearly outranked them in every way that mattered. Jiwon said something final, dismissive. The investigators turned and walked away. "What did you tell them?" "That you're my fiancé, that you came to Korea to marry me, that if they continue harassing my future wife, I'll make sure they never work in this industry again." He straightened his tie. "They'll report that you were last seen with a Korean national, engaged to be married, and that further pursuit would be both futile and legally problematic." The ferry horn sounded, docking. "Come," Jiwon said, "we're going home. If your heart is racing right now, if you need to know what happens when Adetola steps into Jiwon's world, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me if you think she just made the best decision of her life or the most dangerous one. Because what comes next? The real game hasn't even started yet. The apartment in Hinam-dong was a fortress disguised as luxury. 37th floor, the elevator required a kuka just to access their level, and when the doors opened, Adetola stepped into a private foyer that led to a single door. Jiwon's door. He unlocked it, biometric scanner she noticed, and gestured her inside. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, furniture that looked designed rather than purchased, and silence, complete, absolute silence that made her ears ring. "Your room is at the end of the hall," Jiwon said, removing his shoes at the entrance. "Bathroom is unsutta. I've had clothes delivered in your size there in the closet." Adetola stood frozen in the entrance, still wearing her sneakers because she didn't know if she was allowed to take them off. "You had clothes delivered. When?" "This morning, after I decided to make the offer." He hung his coat in a closet, then removed his suit jacket. The shoulder holster was still there. He unbuckled it, setting it on a console table with the casual ease of someone who wore weapons the way other people wore watches. "I needed to be prepared if you said yes. And if I'd said no, then I would have returned them and found another solution to my problem." He pulled his tie loose. "There's food in the refrigerator. The kitchen is fully stocked. I have a housekeeper who comes Tuesdays and Fridays. She's been informed of your arrival and will not ask questions." Her eyes kept drifting to the gun. Are you always armed?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I've made enemies in my work, and some of them would very much like to see me dead." He said it matter-of-factly. "You're safe here. This building has security measures most people can't afford. No one comes up to this floor without authorization. No one gets past the lobby without identification." He started toward the stairs. The apartment had stairs, then paused. "Lock the bedroom door if it makes you feel safer. I won't enter without permission." Then he was gone, footsteps fading into the upper level. Adetola stood in the pristine living room, looking down at the ring on her finger. She'd married a stranger, a dangerous stranger who carried guns and spoke about enemies like most people spoke about traffic. But he'd given her something no one else could, a way out. She found her bedroom and discovered Jiwon hadn't just delivered clothes. There was makeup in the bathroom, her exact foundation shade, toiletries her preferred brands, books on the nightstand, the same authors she'd been reading in the cafe. He'd researched her thoroughly. She sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. 19 missed calls, 14 voicemails, 43 text messages. She blocked every number. Then she lay back and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. Around midnight, she heard the apartment door open. Footsteps, the security system being armed, more footsteps heading upstairs. He didn't come to her door. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt profoundly alone. The next 3 days passed in a strange limbo. Jiwon was gone more than he was present. "Wuck," he'd say, offering no details. When he was home, he was polite, distant, functional. He asked if she needed anything. She said no. He disappeared into his office on the second level, the one room she wasn't allowed to enter. On the fourth morning, she woke to find an envelope under her door. Inside, a new passport application partially filled out and a note in precise handwriting, Visa extension filed. "Appointment at Immigration Office Tuesday 10 a.m. Driver will take you. Wear the ring. JW." No greeting, no signature, just instructions. Tuesday came. The driver, a silent man in his 60s who bowed politely and asked no questions, took her to the immigration office. She sat across from a bureaucrat who looked at her papers, looked at her ring, looked at the address in Hunumdong, and stamped everything without hesitation. "Your fiancé is Mr. Kang Jiwon." "Yes." "Very successful man, very well connected." The woman smiled. "You're very lucky." Adetola smiled back, tasting the lie. "I know." Extension approved. 60 days to formalize the marriage. She was legal now, protected. Trapped. That night she heard Jiwon come home at 9 p.m., heard him pause outside her door, waited for the knock. It didn't come. Instead, his voice filtered through the wood. "Your extension was approved. The marriage registration is scheduled for next Friday at Seoul Family Court. Wear something appropriate. We'll need photos." "Okay." Silence. Then, "Are you settling in?" The question surprised her. "Yes, everything is. Very nice, thank you. The credit card in your name is active. Use it for anything you need." A pause. "I'll be in Busan for the next 3 days. If there's an emergency, call the first number in your phone." "Is that your number?" "No, that's my associate. He'll know how to reach me if necessary." Of course, even in emergencies, she wasn't important enough for direct contact. Understood. She waited, sensing him on the other side of the door, deciding whether to say something else. Then footsteps receding. The apartment door opened and closed. He was gone again. Adetola started taking Korean lessons online. Started reading everything she could find about immigration law, residency requirements, divorce procedures. Started planning for 2 years from now, when this arrangement would end and she'd be free. Really free. She joined networking groups for foreign women in Seoul, started building connections that had nothing to do with the man whose name she was about to carry. Jiwon noticed, of course he noticed. "You're taking classes," he said one evening, the first time he'd been home for dinner in 2 weeks. "Yes." "Why?" She looked up from her laptop, where she'd been conjugating verbs. "Because you told me to make myself valuable." That something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "How's it going?" "I'm conversational. I'll be fluent in 6 months." "Good." He returned to his own work, dismissing her. But that night she found a package outside her door. Advanced Korean textbooks, professional networking guides, a laptop upgrade. No note, just resources. From a man who claimed he didn't care. Friday arrived. The driver took her to Seoul Family Court. Jiwon was already there, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." They signed the papers, posed for photos, her smiling nervously, him looking stern and distant. The registrar, a cheerful woman in her 50s, congratulated them with genuine warmth that made Adetola want to cry. "You make a beautiful couple." "Thank you," Adetola managed. And just like that she was married. Adetola Kang. They left the courthouse in silence. The driver took them back to Hanamdong. They rode the elevator in silence. "I have a business dinner tonight," Jiwon said, removing his jacket. "You're not required to attend." "Okay." He started toward the stairs, then stopped, turned. "You don't have to thank me." "I didn't." "You were going to. You thank me every time I provide something. You don't need to. This is a transaction, not a favor." "It doesn't feel that way." "What does it feel like?" The question caught her off guard. "It feels like I traded one prison for a nicer one." Something flickered across his face. Not anger, something colder. "You're not property, you're a legal partner in a contractual arrangement." "Is there a difference? I can't leave without your permission." "You can leave whenever you want. The door isn't locked." "My visa is tied to this marriage. My entire legal status depends on you. That's not freedom, Mr. Kang." The silence that followed was arctic. Jiwon's jaw tightened, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Anger. "You think I don't know what a cage feels like?" His voice dropped to something dangerous. "My mother controlled every aspect of my existence from the day I was born. My education, my career, my relationships, my future. And when I finally broke free, she found one last way to control me from beyond the grave." He took a step closer. "So don't talk to me about cages, Miss Burr. I opened yours. You can choose to walk through the door or stand here feeling sorry for yourself." "I can't walk through the door. If I leave, I get deported." "Then make yourself valuable enough that leaving isn't your only option." Another step. "Learn the language, build a network, find work that sponsors its own visa. You have 2 years and unlimited resources. Use them." He was right in front of her now. "I saved your life. What you do with it is not my responsibility." He walked away, up the stairs, leaving her with tears burning her eyes and rage burning her chest. He was right. She hated that he was right. She'd run halfway around the world to escape being controlled, and the first thing she'd done was hand control to another man. No more. She wiped her eyes, pulled out her phone, and started searching. Korean language schools, professional development courses, immigration lawyers, networking groups. If she had 2 years, she'd use every minute. And when the time came to walk away from Kang Jiwon, she'd do it on her own terms. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Adetola threw herself into intensive Korean lessons 6 hours a day. She joined networking groups, met other African women navigating life in Seoul, started building connections. She applied for remote teaching positions, anything that could give her independent income. Jiwon noticed. "You're serious about this," he said one evening, finding her at the dining table surrounded by textbooks. "Yes." He studied her for a long moment. "Good." The next morning she found business cards on her nightstand. Immigration attorney, employment specialist, career coach. All hand-selected, she realized. All people who could help her build a life independent of him. Still no note. But the message was clear. "I'll give you the tools. What you build is up to you." 3 weeks into the marriage, Adetola's phone rang at 2 a.m. Unknown number, Korean area code. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Adetola. The voice on the other end was one she'd hoped never to hear again. Smooth, possessive, furious. "Chidi, how did you get this number? Did you really think you could hide from me, marry some Korean stranger and I'd just give up?" His voice was venomous. "I'm in Seoul. I know where you are." Her blood went cold. "You're lying." "Am I? You're in Hanamdong, expensive building, 37th floor. Your husband," he spat the word like poison, "is Kang Jiwon, corporate security, very private man, very dangerous supposedly." Adetola's hands shook. "Stay away from me." "I paid for you, Adetola. Your family took my money, made promises. You belong to me and I'm taking you home." "I don't belong to anyone." "We'll see about that. I'll be seeing you very soon." The line went dead. Adetola sat frozen, phone trembling in her hand as the reality crashed over her. Chidi knew where she lived, knew who she'd married, and he was coming. She should call Jiwon. That was the smart thing, the safe thing. But Jiwon was in Osaka on business, wouldn't be back for 2 days. She was alone. She stood, moving to the window, looking down at the Seoul streets 37 floors below. Somewhere down there, Chidi was waiting, watching, planning. And for the first time since boarding that ferry, Adetola wondered if she'd traded one monster for another, and if the man she'd married to save herself would care enough to protect her when the past finally caught up. The building's security system beeped. Someone had accessed the lobby. Her phone buzzed, text message, unknown number. A photo of her building's entrance, taken 30 seconds ago. Below it one word, coming. Adetola's breath caught. She ran to the apartment door, checked the locks, engaged, but would that stop Chidi? She didn't know how he'd gotten past lobby security, didn't know if he'd bribed someone or forged credentials or... The elevator dinged. 37th floor. Her floor. She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking, and dialed the first number. Jiwon's associate. It rang once, twice. Footsteps in the hallway outside. 3 times. A knock on the door, hard, demanding. "Adetola," Chidi's voice muffled by the door but unmistakable. "Open the door, we need to talk." The phone kept ringing. Another knock, harder. "I know you're in there. I can hear you breathing." The phone clicked. A man's voice, Korean accented. "Who is this?" "My name is Adetola Kang. Someone is trying to break into the apartment. Jiwon told me to call if." "Stay away from the door. Lock yourself in the bedroom. Don't open it for anyone except Mr. Kang." "But Jiwon is in Osaka." "Not anymore." The line went dead. Outside, Chidi pounded on the door again. "You can't hide from me forever. I'll wait right here if I have to." Adetola backed toward her bedroom, every instinct screaming at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. 37 floors up. One exit. One door between her and a man who'd crossed an ocean to claim what he thought he owned. She locked her bedroom door, pushed the dresser against it, and sat on the bed with her phone clutched in both hands, listening to Chidi's voice growing louder, more insistent, more violent. "Your family wants you home. Your mother is ashamed. You embarrassed us all." A crash. He was trying to force the apartment door. "You think this Korean can protect you? I'll make him regret the day he met you." Another crash, the sound of something metal hitting wood. Adetola's phone buzzed. Text from unknown number, on my way, 12 minutes, don't open any doors. No signature, but she knew. Jiwon. 12 minutes felt like an eternity. The crashing continued. Chidi was using something heavy, maybe a fire extinguisher from the hallway, slamming it against the door again and again. 10 minutes. The bedroom door handle rattled. Adetola, I know you're in there. He'd gotten through the apartment door. 8 minutes. Footsteps in the apartment. Chidi's voice closer now, right outside her bedroom. You made me look like a fool, made me fly across the world to retrieve my own wife. Do you know how much I've spent? How much your family owes me? 6 minutes. Open this door or I'll break it down. 4 minutes. A heavy impact. The bedroom door shuddered. The dresser scraped an inch across the floor. Adetola pressed herself into the corner, phone in one hand. The other searching desperately for anything she could use as a weapon, a lamp, a book, nothing that would stop a man Chidi's size. Another impact. The dresser moved another inch. 2 minutes. Last chance, Adetola. She heard it then, the apartment's front door opening. No hesitation, no announcement. Just footsteps, fast, purposeful. And then Jiwon's voice, cold as death. Step away from that door. Silence. I said step away. Chidi's voice defiant. Who the hell are you? The man whose home you just broke into, whose wife you just threatened, whose very limited patience you just exhausted. Your wife, she's mine. The sound that followed was brief and brutal. A thud, a gasp, something heavy hitting the floor. Then Jiwon's voice, quieter now but infinitely more dangerous. Touch that door again and you'll leave this building in pieces. Silence. Do you understand me? A choked sound, agreement, fear. Good, now get up slowly. Footsteps shuffling, movement toward the apartment's main area. Then Jiwon, his voice closer to her door now. Adetola, it's me, you're safe, open the door. She didn't move, couldn't move. It's over, he's leaving, open the door. Slowly, hands shaking, she pushed the dresser aside and unlocked the door. Jiwon stood in the hallway, suit jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars and fresh scratches. His knuckles were red. His expression was the coldest thing she'd ever seen. Behind him, in the living room, Chidi sat on the floor against the wall, nose bleeding, eyes wide with genuine fear. Pack your things, Jiwon told Chidi without looking at him. You have 5 minutes to leave this building. If you're still in Seoul by morning, I'll make sure you're detained by immigration for visa fraud. If you ever contact my wife again, phone, email, messenger, through family, through friends, through anyone, I will find you. And what I did to you tonight will seem merciful in comparison. Chidi stared at him, then at Adetola, then back at Jiwon. Whatever he saw in Jiwon's eyes made him scramble to his feet and run. The apartment door slammed. Silence. Jiwon turned to Adetola, and for the first time since she'd met him, his expression shifted. Not warm, not kind, but something almost human flickered in those cold eyes. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak. Good. He moved past her into the bedroom, checking the window, the locks, cataloging damage. I'm calling building security. They'll review how he got access and ensure it doesn't happen again. He pulled out his phone. You should sit down. You were in Osaka. I was on a plane back the moment my associate called. Landed 20 minutes ago. He made the call, speaking rapid Korean, his tone making it very clear that someone was about to lose their job. When he hung up, he looked at her again, really looked. This won't happen again. You don't know that. Yes, I do. His voice was absolute. Because as of tonight, Chidi is on every watch list I can access. If he enters Korea again, I'll know before he clears customs. If he tries to contact you through any channel, I'll know. And if he's stupid enough to ignore my warning, he'll disappear into the kind of legal nightmare that makes deportation look pleasant. Adetola sank onto the bed, adrenaline finally draining, leaving her hollow. I didn't think he'd actually come. People like him always come. They don't accept no. Jiwon's jaw tightened. But now he knows what happens when he crosses me. You hurt him. I defended my home and my wife. There's a difference. He rolled his sleeves down, buttoning them with precise movements. I should have anticipated this, should have had him flagged sooner. This isn't your fault. You're my responsibility, that makes it my fault. He moved toward the door, then paused. Lock this door after I leave. I'll be in my office. If you need anything at all, knock. I'll hear you. Where are you going? To make sure Chidi is on a plane by dawn, and to have a conversation with building management about their catastrophic security failure. His eyes were ice again. Sleep. I'll handle this. He left. Adetola sat alone in the bedroom, staring at the door Chidi had tried to break down, at the scratches on the wood, at the evidence of how close she'd come to being dragged back to a life she'd risked everything to escape. And she realized something that terrified her more than Chidi's arrival. Jiwon hadn't hesitated, hadn't asked questions, hadn't weighed whether she was worth the trouble. He'd simply acted, protected, eliminated the threat. Not because he loved her, because she was his. And in Jiwon's world, what belonged to him stayed his. Whether that was a comfort or a warning, she didn't yet know. If you're still here, if you need to know what happens now that Jiwon has shown Adetola exactly how dangerous he can be, then do me a favor, subscribe. Leave a comment telling me whether you think Adetola just saw her protector or her next prison. Because part 2 is when everything changes. When the lines Jiwon said he'd never cross start to blur. When protection starts to feel a lot like possession. And when Adetola has to decide if the man who saved her is the same man she should be running from. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button now.